Alright, this particular presentation I'm going to call simply the fear of money. And this is something that is on my mind constantly. You know, not necessarily me being fearful of money, even though I have that parts of me, but just the whole concept of money and people's approach to it made me realize that it always seems to escape us for what it truly is. You know, it's something that we work for constantly. It's something that's always on our mind. Money is something that is all around us. It affects us. In some ways, it controls us. And I'm just on a constant search to always wonder why it always eludes most people and why it always controls their life. And I thought about it and I said it just simply comes back to fear of money, you know, and especially for people that consider themselves conscious, there always seems to be a confusion about money. It always seems to be a tug of war between money in its proper place in regards to spirituality, in regards to God, in regards to being something that can be considered spiritual, that they can feel happy about and working to attain it. So that's why I call this the fear of money. And I noticed that this fear seems to come from, like I said, people being confused about it. And when I say confused, I'm saying that people don't seem to realize that it's okay to have money, because like anything else in life, money is only as strong as the power you give it. Money is only powerful now because we give it energy. You know, we give it life. And that's why in its many forms it's called currency. You know, it's called a charge when you use a card. You know, it's no coincidence that these terms coincide with money, because language has to be associated with money. Because if your language changes, then your money changes. And to say that, that's what I'm going to talk about, emotions. Because emotions is, to me, the primary source, the primary conductor, the primary generator of money. And I notice this confusion about money seems to come from people always having a battle between what's practical and what's spiritual or what's metaphysical. So there's always something where you'll hear people say, well, you know, my day-to-day needs, or I hear that, but it's not paying my bills. It's not something that I can use. And I notice that there's always a gap between things that seem metaphysical or pie in the sky and things that are everyday, like food, clothing, and shelter, things that I guess you can say you can touch, versus things you can conceptualize and not necessarily touch. So what I'm going to attempt to do in anything that seems to have a gap is kind of fuse what is seen as pie in the sky versus things that seems practical that you can see. Because anytime you have things that don't connect, or anytime you are at one point you're attempting to get to another, the best way to fuse that together or go from point A to point Z is to build a bridge. So I'm going to attempt to build a bridge and hopefully unfold and unravel why it is that we seem to separate things like spirituality, metaphysics, occult topics as something that we can't use on our day-to-day basis, even though the things that are behind our working for money, aspiring for money, paying our bills, anything related to any kind of monetary exchange is things that's invisible, because the true definition of money is an idea backed by confidence. And I say that again, it's an idea backed by confidence. So the definition of money, the two root words of that is idea and confidence. And those aren't things that you can touch. So how is it that these things that you can't touch, you can't see, you can't feel, are really the lifeblood of money, but yet and still we dismiss it when we're in pursuit of finance? So with that, I'm going to attempt to start with emotions and the bridge. Now, when I say emotions dictate, or should I say not dictate yet, but when I say emotions are very important when it comes to money, is because you go after money based upon what you feel you have to do. Because when you are faced with not having enough money to pay your bills, the feeling arises that I have to do something. The feeling arises that I am overwhelmed. So based upon how you manage those feelings and how you direct and drive those feelings is going to determine the path you take and the choices you make and how you decide to do an action in order to generate money. So it's very important that you are aware of your emotions, because I, a person that is aware, can pretty much tell what a person's financial state is based upon their emotions. Because a person that has a grasp on their emotions, a person that's cool about their emotions, 10 to 1 can become someone that would be a business owner or an investor, in which case that would make them different than a person that's an employee or self-employed. So your emotions are very important. So if you are able to handle and grasp your emotions against the highest of adversity, then that can correlate to you acquiring money in a way that might be more beneficial to your spirit. So with that, I want to say that to all the conscious community out there, I'm noticing that whenever I talk about money, I kind of get a dismissed type of vibe from people, as if they don't, I'll say something about money and then out of respect, they won't comment on it, but their action will show me that they're not really focused on it. They'll say, oh, I got to focus on family, or family is the backbone, or, we just got to work together. And it's kind of like we don't really want to delve in to finance, And I even had someone who I respect tell me that it was my ego that is the reason why I want to become wealthy. So I had to explore that, And I'm thinking that there's a serious problem here, because everything we do, whether we accept it or not, is boiled down to finance. How spiritual can you be if you are completely stripped away of almost all of your materials? That is a test to see how spiritual that you act. Will you succumb to your lower nature, or will you continue to be principled and use certain high levels of spirituality when you're stripped away from everything? And what I've observed is that everything from diet to how you treat people to how you treat yourself, as far as the type of emotions that you carry and thoughts that you carry, are severely affected when you are stripped of material things. So what does that tell me? It tells me that no matter how spiritual you are, at some point in time in your life, of course consistency varies, that your spirituality will sink down to a lower level once your materials are stripped. So if that is the case, that means that this is something that cannot be dismissed. This is something that has to be addressed. This is something that has to be put in its context. So the question that I have to put out there is it okay to attain wealth, especially as a conscious person? Is it okay to say, you know what, I like money, and not feel bad about it? I mean, say that to yourself. I like money. And how do you feel? Do you feel conflicted? Do you feel guilty? Do you feel happy? Do you feel nothing? These feelings and these emotions are very important. And when you ask this question, even if you're not necessarily asking it, to yourself, but just saying it, do I like money? And observe your response, you can see exactly where you stand in regards to money. And once you see where you stand, you'll start to see why it is you have the relationship that you do have with money. If there's a crisis in your life a lot, if money seems to come and go, if it doesn't seem to come at all, you can assess that by asking yourself, how do I feel about money? And based on the different feelings that you have, you can have an honest picture of where you stand in relation to money and your spirituality. Because a lot of times money escapes us and we go through hardships and we're broke a lot because we're not honest with ourselves. If a person says money isn't everything, but you work 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, then you work as much as you sleep every day. So sleep is vital to your health. It's vital to your being. So if you say money isn't everything, but you're working for money as much as you're sleeping, then you have now put money or the acquisition of money in your hierarchy of needs. After food, clothing, shelter, sleep, money, you have to be honest with that. And if you're subconsciously or unconsciously or just not aware that you're putting money in your top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hierarchy of needs, then you're going to constantly be confused. You're tripping up your wires because your brain is fighting itself, because you have parts of your brain saying that money is important and another part saying it is important, it is not important. And that's a conflict. So that conflict resonates in your language, it resonates in your emotions, and people pick that up consciously or unconsciously. So therefore you are now coming across as a confused being. And money does not stay in the hands of someone that's confused. Money stays in the hands of an individual or groups of individuals or companies that are very clear with what it's going to do once money's in its possession. That's why a key word that is associated with money is house. If you see a lot of families that have generational wealth, they are no longer just families, they now have become a house. The house of Morgan, the house of Rockefeller, the house of Rothschild. And another word for your body is called your house or your temple. So if money goes to those that are clear about it, then that house is always going to be full of money, you know. So if your house is confused, money's going to go away from you. Money does not stay in the hands of someone that's confused, someone that's fearful. It quickly leaves. And money has a life of its own, because money is constantly charged by the amount of focus that groups of people put upon it. Anything or any time a person or groups of people put their attention on one thing, then that thing becomes bigger. It even becomes bigger than the people or entities that put their focus on it. You know, when you see things like on television, the rise of the machines, and you see all of that, it's not just machines, it's anything. Because when you're dealing with life, you're dealing with things that can be animated and resuscitated to become living. So money is one of those things that now it's a living entity. It's a concept backed by confidence, and these things are powered by individuals and their feelings and their thoughts. So because of this now, money operates on certain principles and certain laws. Okay? And because we all agree that this is what we're going to use to communicate with each other materially, because that's what money is. Money is a communicator amongst individuals to transfer material things from one party to another. That's it. So therefore money is a language. So if you don't speak the language of money, then again, money's not going to come to you. You cannot disrespect money. You cannot, in a sense, not love money. And you can. Now, if you do choose not to love it, if you choose not to deal with it, then you can do that. But you cannot be a hypocrite about that. You know, you can't go pushing things for a currency and then say that you don't care about money. That is hypocritical. Okay? And plus, when you use the words "I don't care," that is the language of Satan. So even if you claim to be spiritual by saying "I don't care about money," just based on your language, you are using Satan, because "I don't care" is the language of Satan. So you can't mix the two.